Why did Ironheart make so many people dislike her with just one line?
Do you think Tony Stark would be Tony Stark if he wasn't a billionaire? No shade. That's just the way the world works.
Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps!
But what truly made Tony extraordinary was never his money. Tony Stark built his first circuit board at the age of 4, assembled an engine on his own by 6, graduated from MIT at just 17, and inherited Stark Industries at 21, turning it into the world's largest weapons manufacturer. One day, Tony personally demonstrated Stark Industries' latest weapons to the US military. After the presentation, his convoy was ambushed by terrorists on the way back. He barely managed to dive behind a rock when a missile slammed into the ground beside him. Stamped across its side were the unmistakable words, Stark Industries. The explosion threw Tony through the air and shrapnel tore into his chest. When he regained consciousness, he found himself imprisoned in a cave. Attached to his chest was a crude electromagnet powered by a car battery. The man beside him, Dr. Yinsen, explained that the device was keeping the shrapnel from reaching his heart. If it ever stopped working, Tony would die. The terrorists handed Tony blueprints and ordered him to build a Jericho missile. When he refused, they brutally tortured him before dragging him outside. There, he saw mountains of weapons. Every single one of them had been made by Stark Industries. At that moment, Tony finally realized the truth. The weapons he had created had long since fallen into the hands of ruthless killers. Determined to escape, he pretended to cooperate and agreed to build the missile. In secret, however, he and Yinsen began working on something entirely different. Tony salvaged materials from the missiles and built a miniature arc reactor to replace the bulky electromagnet in his chest. Then he spread out a new set of blueprints. Only then did Yinsen realize Tony had never intended to build a missile at all. He was building a suit of armor. To avoid raising suspicion, the two secretly assembled the armor piece by piece. With time running out, the two worked through the night and finally completed the armor. When the terrorists discovered Tony had disappeared, they rushed into the cave, only to be blown back by explosives he had planted in advance. The armor was still powering up, so Yinsen grabbed a weapon and charged outside, sacrificing himself to buy Tony the time he needed. As the startup sequence finished, Tony climbed into the Mark I armor and fought his way toward the cave entrance. But by the time he reached Yinsen, it was already too late.
I'm going to see that house now. Thank you for saving me.
Enraged, Tony unleashed torrents of flame, wiping out the terrorists and destroying every Stark Industries weapon stored in the camp. He then activated the suit's thrusters and blasted into the sky, only to crash into the desert after running out of fuel. After returning home, Tony didn't go to the hospital. Instead, he called a press conference and stunned the world by announcing that Stark Industries would immediately cease manufacturing weapons. The decision shocked everyone. Back home, Tony threw himself into building a new suit of armor. He first upgraded the arc reactor, then spent countless hours testing and refining the flight system. During his first test flight, he slammed straight into a wall. On the second attempt, he finally made it into the air. After endless improvements, he completed the Mark II armor and integrated his AI assistant JARVIS. But during a high-altitude flight test, the suit rapidly iced over in the freezing temperatures, nearly causing a complete system failure. At the last possible moment, Tony deployed the air brakes, shattered the ice, and regained control. Back in the lab, he realized the armor was still too heavy.
Kill power.
So he redesigned it using a gold titanium alloy, lighter, stronger, and far more resistant to freezing. As for the color scheme, he found inspiration in one of his father's classic cars, red and gold. The iconic Iron Man armor had finally been born.